What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of 2 Times the Grind. We're halfway to double digits.
We are.
Halfway. 5 episodes. It's gone by very, very quickly, and we appreciate so much the love and support that you guys show on the podcast. And honestly, like, it really keeps us going. The motivation's there. Like, we love hearing what you guys have to think after the podcast and hearing your opinions. It's really cool, so keep it coming, folks. Anyway, episode 5 brings us to talk about, of course, the Call of Duty League yet again, because we have had our groups chosen for stage 2.
That's right.
And we're going to discuss it. We're going to kick things off today, as usual, discussing Call of Duty League. But before we do, we got to do our ceremony of the bean, which is kindly sent to us by Odin. Odin, absolute G. Thank you so much for sending
Apex
this in.
teammate. Shout out Odin.
Teammate for Apex, love that. Okay, I might mess this up, but Anodyne Coffee, Anodyne, 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 is that how everyone else would say it? Anodyne Coffee, Roasting Co. This is capable of soothing or eliminating pain. It's also relaxing, and it's a medicine that relieves pain, which is what Anodyne. Oh, I see. That's what Anodyne means.
Yeah.
Got you. So this isn't capable of I was like, whoa.
I was like, isn't that all coffee?
Yeah.
Capable of relieving pain? The pain of waking up in the morning.
Genuinely serious. But beautiful packaging. It is a whole bean. It smells absolutely delicious. I'm going to see if there's anything here. So it's from the region. Oh, I don't know how to say that. Acer.
Huh? Where?
I'm not sure what region it is. Check out in the description, folks.
Yeah.
But it's a high altitude, 1,200 to 1,600 altitude. It's from Katura. And doesn't say too much. It is organic. Love a bit of organic.
Doesn't have a lot of it. No, it doesn't have an insane amount of info on it.
Tells you how to make it, though. That's cool. I like that. Tells you how to make it. Do you want to give it a sip?
Yeah.
Let's give it a go.
Give it a little try. We'll give a rating at the end, obviously.
Yeah. Ooh.
I like it.
That is strong, isn't it? That's very strong.
Mm-hmm.
That'll put some hairs on your chest.
I like it.
It's nice. We were actually having this with cream and sugar, just a little bit,
to cut the tiniest bit.
Cut the strength of it just a little bit more. I like a strong coffee.
Yeah.
This is yummy.
Yeah.
It's also the color of an espresso. What you'd imagine espresso. It's very dark.
I like it. It's probably my favorite one so far.
Is it your favorite one so far?
The hard part is now though, I don't know what I rated the other ones. So I think it's
last one
like an 8, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not bad.
No.
We'll have to see. If it's your favorite one.
Yeah. We'll see.
Step up that.
I'm gonna see how I feel.
Okay, we'll step up the rating.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's get into talk about the Call of Duty League groups. Obviously, for folks who are brand new to Call of Duty League, there's 2 groups. We're in stage 2, so we've already had stage 1. We've had our major, Atlanta Phase 1 that. And stage 2, they do choose the groups in the same format as stage 1. It's a snake format. And basically, the top 2 seeded teams get to choose first who they want to see in the groups. So it goes by seeding in terms of who gets to choose what. And then obviously the last seed doesn't get to choose at all.
Yeah.
They just see where they
London was just like sat there, wasn't he? It was
Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just like sat there like waiting for everything, and then he's like, okay, that's our group.
Hey, look, it happens. Let's see if they can redeem themselves in stage 2. We'll find out.
They did solid.
Yeah.
In the major.
Yeah, they
did
actually.
Given the situation that they were in of not being able to use Zero, and Parasite comes in, and then Alex ends up not being able to play in the major. I think he had a family emergency, and he had to go home. And they obviously used Zed, right?
Yeah,
That's gamer tag Zed. I know him as his first name.
Zach. Yeah.
But they did solid. So I'm excited to see stage 2 where they take it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. London, I feel like I've got like so many game 5 records.
A couple game 5s, haven't they?
Recently, I think it's more recently than not, and it's just like, it must be so frustrating for them, because obviously they're at the bottom of the pack at the moment, but then they can't.
They're one game away.
Quite get the win.
Yeah, it's like one game away from getting that dub.
Hey, look, stage 2 is a new leaf, a new page in the book of Call of Duty.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Group A first. So our top 2 teams, Group A, obviously Atlanta FaZe being one of them. We're not going to really talk too much about the top teams from both groups, just because we have last episode. So we'll kind of go for the underdog stories of all of these groups. So FaZe, New York Subliners, obviously our top two teams in this group, but the underdogs for this group. Peach, what would you be saying for the underdogs?
Well, LAG obviously being in there for Group A.
Yeah.
I think they showed a lot through the major and even through league play, league matches. I thought they did great. Solid all around. Upset the LA Thieves. I think LA Thieves are an underdog for this stage 2, but also I think they have a lot to prove. You and I were kind of talking about it a little bit. LA Thieves is a little bit concerning to me because I think it was like episode 2. I was like, they're going to go 4-0.
Yeah.
I think that they can beat Dallas. And then really, ever since then, like I was really kind of hyping them up. Like, oh man, I think they're really solid here. And then they lose to Empire 3-0.
Actually, I have their journey here.
Yeah.
I wrote it down.
Lose to Empire 3-0.
So first of all, this is how their journey went. So they beat Rocker and NYSL in the opening weekend. They then go on to beat London and Surge at Super Week, and then they lost to Empire 3-0 at the end when everyone was hoping for that 5-0 clean sweep that they had.
Or just like a close series.
Exactly. And then in their first major, LAG beat them 3-0 right at the beginning.
Big upset.
And then they beat Ultra 3-0.
Yeah.
But then they lose to Optic 3-1. So it's been a bit of a back and forth for them, hasn't it?
I think that what we saw was almost like a little bit of a pretend record. And I hate to be harsh on that, but I actually think we were looking at them going 4-0 and you're like, man, this is like a really good team.
Yeah.
But they beat Rocker, which is impressive. Rocker is really solid. They obviously go on to beat Empire, and then they beat NYSL. And when you look at NYSL now, you're like, oh, that's really impressive. They beat them. But NYSL obviously was having their own dilemma with roster changes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So opening weekend, NYSL is a whole different New York than the major, right? And I don't know. I don't know if like the loss to Empire maybe hurt the egos a little bit or what, but I think this is a big stage 2 because they have history from last year, obviously, like the core 3. And it's like, at what point, if they have a bad stage 2 where they don't make it, let's say top 4, because they should be like a top 4 or 5 team.
For example, if they don't make the winners bracket of the next major.
Not necessarily winners bracket. They can have a lose bracket run. But like say they just don't get top 4. It's like, at what point it's like, okay, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, can you already see cracks in that armor, do you think?
It's early.
Like, in terms of like, do you feel like they need to change?
I think that if they have a bad stage 2, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Do
you have someone in mind already?
No. It's so difficult with roster changes now because of the league format.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't just go and grab X player from best team and put him on this team. So I'd really have to think of like free agents, and it depends on what role and stuff like that. I'm not going to be super quick to be like, they need to make a change. They had a solid stage 1, better start than last year. Yeah. Right. But if they have a bad stage 2, these are all top guys that want to be in the top 4 no matter what. So it'll be interesting. And also, you know this better than anyone because of how much you keep up with it. You probably keep up with it more than me, obviously, since it's your job. But with the meta changes, it's like, how quick are they to now adapt to the meta change?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that's changing. It's always constantly changing. And I think that's part of the job, isn't it? Really, as a Call of Duty pro player, like you've got to be good at adapting to your surroundings and what's going on around you.
I actually like that about Call of Duty.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, because I like that like FaZe can win the first major, and then like you head into stage 2, and there's a different change. The only thing that I critique with that is that we're in this new meta now for stage 2. I hope it kind of stays that meta for all of stage 2. You know what I mean? Rather than like a random update or GA or something like that then like shifts it again. Because I think that was a problem that people had in MW, was like random updates or random GAs like just moments before tournaments, and it's like, okay, you know.
Yeah, it's can be hard to keep up with, but I think if you're also just like, if that's the life that you've been living in terms of your game, so you're used to it.
What do you think of Thieves? Stage 2, obviously LAG the underdog for us because they came out to play in the major.
Yeah. Actually, do you know what? I want to see who they're playing. So I want to have a look at the schedule. So first game is going to be Ultra, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Because I feel like, when we were discussing this before as well, Ultra is also one of your underdogs of this group. Yeah. So it's interesting that LA Thieves, who really need to try and cement their dominance in this group alongside Atlanta and New York. And probably, I would even say they probably want to overtake New York's dominance.
They want to be a top 2 team.
They know that they probably can't do that with FaZe right now, but I think that they want to be up there with NYSL and overtake them.
They should be.
And I think this is quite a big challenge against Ultra for them. So what do you make of this Ultra team? Because dramas.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about it now?
Yeah, let's talk about it now.
Yeah,
because obviously Methodz.
Obviously Methodz ends up getting benched. He put out a tweet. I'll paraphrase it, but just wanted to say it before everyone else. I've been benched by the Toronto Ultra. He said something along the lines of like, I'm not really sure what to say or do because I feel like this is my best game in a while, and
since World War II.
Since World War II, and I don't know where to go from here. I gotta be honest, I agree with him.
Stats don't lie.
If you look at his stats and like you can't credit stats to everything.
Yeah, but you can if the stats really come across on screen.
They lost 4 Game 5s.
Yeah,
4 Game 5s. His hardpoint stat.
Sorry, no, they didn't lose 4 Game 5s.
They went to Game 5.
And they lost 2 and won 2. So they had 50-50.
And then they lost to LA Thieves.
Yeah.
In the end, 3-0.
So let me just talk you through these stats because this is where the confusion kicks in. I just don't understand this roster change. And a lot of the times I don't really have that much of an opinion on roster changes unless I think it's heavily benefiting a team. Because usually I would just say, let's just see how they do. There's
usually
whatever.
There's usually kind of a clear cut.
There's usually kind of a reason behind it. This I just don't get. Methodz, his overall KD in the league is 1.04. He's 13th. Okay. Hardpoint 1.03. S&D 1.06, and then Control 1.07. The guy falls below 20th position in the league on everything. He not only does that, but he's the main stat guy for his team. Yeah, he's good at everything. He's an overall round player. Like, how are you?
And he's also a playmaker.
Why? Yeah,
the amount of clutches he's had for Toronto in general in the past 2 years.
He also has a bit of an IGL in the team too. Yeah. Like he's got a good head on his shoulders. I feel like he takes a lot of responsibility for that team, and it's just to me that is like a shocking change. You look at the stats and I could understand maybe taking out Bance, and I mean no disrespect when I say to Bance, but you look at his stats and stuff, it's just not good. It's not great. He hits a 1.00 KD on one thing, and that's hard point.
You know what the most concerning thing for me is with this whole change is, first off, they don't stream their scrims. Yeah. So there's a solid chance they're having some kind of internal issue, and that's what it comes down to. And sometimes the better play is to, maybe they're having this internal problem, replacing Methodz. I'll be honest, I've never heard Methodz having some kind of team issue before. He's always seen
the fun of the team.
So we don't get that insight. But the concerning thing with the stats, he's an AR player, so I expect him to. He puts up numbers. I expect. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The concerning thing is consistent. Yeah, and he's consistent exactly with those numbers. The concerning thing is, if you look at, you have it up right now, if you look at those SND stats, go ahead and read what Bance and the other guys are all at in SND.
Okay, so all of them, 0.83 Bance.
Yeah, so Bance 0.83.
0.99, and Kleenex is a 0.81. Yeah. And then Methodz is 1.06.
Right. So you don't normally, SND statistics is usually kind of like, because, it's search and destroy, right?
It's not just about kills.
They have gone to 4 Game 5s, which means that they've actually played a good amount of search and destroy. Yeah. So those stats aren't random. No. It's not like the optic.
That's taking into consideration at least, 2 games a series for the last 4, 5 even.
Exactly.
Games that they've played.
Exactly. So
that's 10. It's 10 search and destroys in concession in that stat line.
So in that's concerning, right? Yeah. And some of that comes down to strategies. It's not solely on those guys that they're putting at bad numbers, but you see it. You see in their games. I think Bance had like an 0-7 at one point. I forget against which team. I wish I went and looked it up, but I think he had like an 0-6, 0-7. I don't get the change. We'll see. We don't necessarily have a confirmation on who they're picking up.
Yeah, but there's definitely speculation. Yeah. But obviously, that's just in terms of the subs. Yeah. Obviously, who's on the subs. So.
But it's definitely concerning. And I think that from what I gather, you talked to them, so I'll need you to kind of tell me. But like you kind of mentioned, I feel like Methodz is like the vocal one
Yeah.
on the team. Like
Yeah.
Kleenex seems pretty shy overall.
Yeah.
Cammy Bance, I'd say kind of the same.
Bance is fairly.
He's been around a
fairly
while,
vocal.
right?
Yeah,
So
fairly vocal. Cammy's not as much, but
Yeah.
Bance is fairly vocal.
And then who's their coach? Marky B, right?
Yeah, Marky B. But I definitely say that, like, you know, the most vocal is Methodz, but it's just not even about like the dynamic, because I don't know what their team dynamic is really like, because we don't get to see.
No one does.
But I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't. Why would you take your star player off?
It's not just that. It's not just the star player thing, because I understand if they're having some kind of internal issue with him, I get it. But whoever they bring on, they are struggling in general in the league, right? Whoever they bring on is going to have to be as much of a slayer and overall positive KD as Methodz is. And I fully believe that, because I know people are like, oh, stats don't lie, yada, yada. But it's like when you got your AR players minimum putting up, I don't want to say minimum, but he put up a 1.03 in hard points.
Yeah.
The player you bring in needs to be able to do the same.
Oh, of course.
You know,
got to try and match it as much as you can.
Because you're not beating Optic. We saw Toronto versus Optic on Checkmate Hardpoint get 100-point clubbed.
If it gets any less than that, if it gets any worse than that in terms of stats wise for this AR player coming in,
they're not getting kills.
They're not getting any kills.
Exactly.
They're not going to open lanes. They're not going to be able to get their rotations in, and they're going to get cleaned out.
You remember their match against Optic?
Yes.
Where the first hard point, they just 100-point clubbed, smacked around. And it's like, you're taking away the guy who gets the most kills out of that.
Like the guy who can put the brakes on there.
Yeah.
It's hard. I know. Anyway, what are your opinions on this, guys? Let us know. What do you think of Methodz being benched? Do you think it was a good decision? Are we missing something that maybe everyone else is or isn't?
I think we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see.
Everyone's kind of shocked
I'm interested
about it.
because it is going to be it's their home series coming up too, which is even more interesting. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what Ultra has up their sleeve for this one. But let's talk about Group B. So obviously the big dogs in Group B, Dallas and Optic, can't contest it. Just obviously what happened in the major, what's been happening all season. But then underdogs, I'm thinking Legion for sure, but then also Mutineers. So we can talk about both of these. Let's talk about Legion first. Okay, obviously I feel like Paris Legion coming into this league and in this season, I feel like people weren't really taking them seriously.
Agreed.
I think a lot of people felt like they were a mismatch of players that had been thrown together because it was almost like the last in the pile.
They announced their roster last.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's really kind of the thought process behind a lot of people viewing this team and how they saw them. And they've really kind of come into the league on a slow burner, but burning nonetheless, and really kind of shocked a lot of people throughout this process.
Yeah.
Okay. But looking at Group B and who they're with and who they're situated with, how do you think the beginning of their stage 2 might go? We can also try and get up the schedule.
I wouldn't even.
They got first.
Yeah, you can like.
They got Rocket first.
Okay, they got Rocket first. My concern with Paris, I was shocked to see how well they did. I was shocked. They got good players, but to pick your roster last and not necessarily get the same star power that maybe some other people are getting, right? I was shocked and pleasantly surprised at how well they played. I'm sure everyone was, because I love seeing a good matchup. I love that Paris can come in and beat Florida.
Yeah.
You know, my concern with Paris now is I think that they potentially peaked. I think that we've seen them do a couple upsets here and there, and are they going to really break in? Like, are they? Yeah, it's like, are they? You know, are they going to be the team to go in and beat Optic? Like,
I don't know.
Yeah. Cool thing with the meta changes, it's possible.
Yeah.
But
it definitely is. I think because things like flip around a little bit now. Yeah. People can, I mean, obviously with Apocalypse Hardpoint coming in too, like that's something new for everybody to watch competitively. It's something new to gain strats on competitively. And it's still, like, I think again, that's like almost a fresh page for a respawn there for teams to kind of, I don't know, situate themselves and kind of, I think, shake things up a little bit too, because that could be the strength and weakness of a couple of our big dogs. So
yeah, they did beat, like they beat Florida in Super Week. I think my thing with Paris is like just being harsh on the fact that I didn't think they did amazing in the major. Like I don't know, they did good. They did solid.
I mean, I think considering a lot of the impression that they had before, I think they did pretty good.
No, yeah, but then like they lost to Florida, who they beat in Super Week. So like
but look at Optic and YSL.
Oh no! Oh, I know. I mean,
know.
it's so the
so
matchups aren't
flip-floppy.
so flip floppy. But I think like the thing with Paris was, I would have really liked to see them get that big upset in the major.
Yeah.
Because then I'd be like, oh, okay, they're for real.
That's the thing. That would have been the perfect story.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It never happens like that, does it? It's like you want it to happen. We spoke about this last time. You want things to happen, like in terms of what makes a good game, but sometimes.
Because you know how I feel. I feel
how
like
do you feel, P?
I feel like you watch teams in league matches and take it to game 5 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're like my therapist. Like
yeah, I am. Tell me, talk to me.
Let me tell you about the CDL.
Shall I lie down?
I do.
I do.
You watch the league matches and you see them go to game 5 and all that, and not necessarily game 5, but they beat Florida, and then when you get to the major, and they just kind of lose to Florida. Skies goes off on them, and you're kind of like, same old, like didn't really happen. I don't know, but it doesn't mean that they're not capable.
Yeah.
It just.
So speaking of though, Florida.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Mutineers exactly who they fell to. Kind of ended their run. I think probably Legion came into that with a level of confidence about them having done it before, but it just didn't turn out that way. And it happens a lot in our league all the time. But Mutineers, I feel like Mutineers started off with such a powerful run. I feel like
they were honeymooning.
They were honeymooning, weren't they? Obviously having Neptune on board, young gun coming in fresh, like the new Shotzi's in town. And hoping to make a name for himself. And, really, Travis has been doing a great job.
He's played awesome.
He has been a big difference maker, but also the biggest difference maker on their team, Awakening.
Yeah.
Having a star player like that has been a godsend for this Mutineers roster, and I feel like that's really started to gel them together a lot as well. But just didn't really have... Like at some point,
the stage one you
stopped, didn't it? It just didn't quite happen for them. So, what are you seeing out of this Mutineers roster coming into stage 2? Obviously, being in Group B against the Dallas, against Optic, against Paris once again. What are you thinking there?
I think that they are 100% capable of beating teams, beating every team, and they showed it. They literally have showed it. They've beaten FaZe in the I always forget what that first tournament was called. Like, the preseason matchup.
Oh, the Kickoff Classic.
The Kickoff Classic. I always forget the name of it. The Kickoff Classic, they literally hung in there with Optic plenty. I think they won game 1 against Optic in their league match. I think game 2 went like 6-4 or something like that. And then they lose 3-1. They're fully capable. I've said this before. Awakening is an absolute beast.
He is.
I would give him the Supermax on just straight up on any team he's on.
Well.
He 100%. You can't. I don't think now heading into his second year you can deny it. Give him the Supermax. You don't want him to leave. You don't want him to go anywhere.
Like lock him in.
I think
you and him about to be best friends after you saying that.
That's fine. Could be his agent. Lock him in. Because the consistency is there for him 100%.
Yeah.
The concerning thing for me,
I feel like he's do I go?
What?
He's the Methodz of Mutineers. Apart from the personality, it's just a little different.
What do you mean by that?
I just feel like he's a star player.
Yeah.
Methodz is a star player for his team.
Yeah. I think it's a bit different. Yeah. I would put him even higher than Methodz.
Oh, no. But in terms of their team, I think.
No, I got you.
In terms of that team, obviously, I think a little higher.
Yeah. His stats are
Zinni is good.
His stats are
Zinni
ridiculous.
is good. There's only so much you can do, by the way, with a team around you as well. And that means, I know disrespect for the rest of the Ultra team at all, but I do think that sometimes you can't just always expect an incredible player to just go on and be absolutely amazing because they're playing against players who are all really good. Every single person on the team is amazing on every single team. So
the great players make
you get
plays.
shut down very quickly if you don't
Yeah.
have the rest of the tools in your belt, which are the rest of your
100%.
teammates to help you do what you do best.
On the flip side of that, the great players find a way to make plays, which is what you see on Florida. You see Awakening do. You see Neptune do. You see Methodz do over on Toronto, which is the concerning thing for Toronto. Is now I feel like they're taking away like a playmaker, kind of.
Sorry, continue.
It's okay. The concerning thing for Florida, I actually think Neptune has embraced Call of Duty, and that's not biased. I'd have no problem saying if I thought he wasn't doing good. He has done great through all of the league matches. The major, I thought he's done great. Slacked and Skies need to play better. If Slacked and Skies play better, they can beat any team.
Yeah.
And we've seen stints of it with both of them. But the consistency, especially for Skies, the consistency hasn't been there for me. And Slack has always been a little bit more inconsistent to me. But he's also, he's one of those role players where he's not always going to put up great numbers, which is kind of an excuse in my book nowadays, because you watch top teams, everyone's putting up numbers. But they can make it work because they have the talent around them. You know?
See, I said this on the desk very early on in this season, and I said it about Priester actually, but it goes for a lot of players, and I think I did clarify that at the time too. But having hot and cold players on your team is so hard because when they're on, they're on.
Yep.
Like I watched Skies just go at
against Paris.
Yes.
Remember?
He was amazing. Yeah. There were so many moments where I was like, oh my, hi, Skies.
Frying everyone. Yeah. You know?
Same with Slacked. Same with Slacked. And there's so many other players that I can literally talk about that do this too, but they have hot and cold games. But it's not just, I'm not just talking about, hey, look, every player can have, not a great game average. I'm talking about poor, bad, bad games and really good games, unreal games. I'm talking about the absolute polar opposites. And we have those hot and cold players so often in the league, and it makes or breaks teams in certain points. And that's the thing. You can't have, but you got to try not to have those hot and cold days in moments, especially just to the build up of, a major, going into a major, how are you going to do? You don't know because the consistency isn't there. And I feel like the consistent teams...
How are you playing that day?
Are the top ones. Yeah. FaZe being super consistent. Has been the whole time. So
FaZe, Dallas, Optic. Yeah. Really consistent. Players aren't dropping huge negative bombs.
And I think that's where the skill gap is different. I don't think it's because... it's not that I don't think Mutineers can be a top team. They can. Yeah. If they all are on... God, that team is beating FaZe. Yeah. They're up there with them.
Yeah, you could say about almost every team. Rocker beat Empire,
and I think that's where the difference is. When you start to see the teams, gap. Yeah, and I think that's also why we're seeing flip-floppy games. I think that's why we're seeing Optic NYSL 3-0ing each other on a different day. Is because of the hot and cold. That's just what happens.
NYSL caught fire. Yep. Boom. 3-0.
Every single player on that team performing. Yeah. Beautifully, and having star players on different maps in a series too.
Agreed.
Perfect. That's what you want. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always happen, and that is why you're seeing. That's why we do have power rankings. That's why we have top teams. That's what happens.
Yes. The consistency for Florida just hasn't been there, and you're 100% right about what you're saying. That's a big difference in skill gap. Is how consistent are you? You might take a team to a game 5. You might take them to a game 5. You might beat them in a league match. But then when it's major time and the top teams are all firing on all cylinders for the most part because they're like, okay, now it's go time now. Are you consistent or are you coming out flat?
I agree.
And for the bottom teams, it's not that they're not capable because they've shown they're capable.
They all are. Even London people, just saying, London are more than capable too.
Take Empire game 5.
Yeah,
London's tough because the roster situation for them has been so difficult. I feel bad for them.
It's been really hard. But I mean, it'd be very interesting, right? Hypothetically, imagine if every single team for 1 week was super consistent. Yeah. All of them were absolutely amazing. They were all on point and they were doing what they all do best individually and as a team. I would love to see where things fall. I'd love to see who'd be at the top and who'd be at the bottom then.
FaZe.
Just based on the team smarts, the team planning.
FaZe would be at the top.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Do you really think so?
Yeah. I think
really?
I think FaZe,
Dallas Empire, all completely full
I think
on.
FaZe, Dallas, and Optic are the top.
You really don't think it would change much if every single team was on it?
I don't know. I look at FaZe's roster.
Every single player played out of their mind.
I think FaZe has the strongest roster.
I just had to touch it. That was all it was.
That's all right.
I think I gotta cut that.
I think. Are you ready? I think FaZe. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like FaZe has the strongest roster, on paper. But to be fair, I don't know. Optic's roster is incredible. Yeah. Dallas roster is incredible. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be very interesting. I think it would change it up a bit. But I think it would.
So going back to last year, like I thought FaZe's roster was incredible, but with the meta changes, they just didn't keep up. No. Which is why like I don't feel like with FaZe, I look at their roster and I'm like they're incredible.
But this is what I think happened last year too.
Yeah.
Going back to the consistency thing, more teams became more consistent. That is what happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I ask you, hypothetically, what you think that would do to the ladder. Because that is where it happens. Okay. So this is what we spoke about, I think last episode, about FaZe and about what happened to them last year. The fact that they couldn't quite do it because Dallas was a step ahead of them at the end. But I think that is what happens through a season. This is why, for example, Rocker started falling a bit. And I know obviously it's difficult to talk about land online, but also consistency. And I think it plays a huge role in it. If teams start growing and learning and becoming more consistent, they start figuring things out, they start becoming more confident in their team and teammates to know when to shine, when to pull it back, when to do whatever. That's when the consistency comes in. And I think that's what happens when you get to the end of a season. You then start to see where teams are at and how consistent teams are, and then it starts to fall back into place a bit.
You've convinced me slightly. I'm going to change my answer. I won't say FaZe is going to beat everyone in the hypothetical that hypothetical. I think the top 3 just swap around of who's the best that day. Because if everyone's playing great, I think on paper, if everyone's playing great, I think the top 3, no offense to NYSL, I'm saying Optic in that top 3 the moment.
What about Rocker? What would you say for every single Rocker player? Because let's be honest, they have a fantastic team on paper in terms of how they work with each other. Mm-hmm. Where would you say they would lie?
I don't know. You okay?
Did it again.
You all right?
Yeah.
Reset.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep it in.
Where would Rocker lie? I don't know. It's tough because they got a great roster on paper. I just think that they have a great roster on paper, but just something about their roster doesn't like click 100% to me. That's a championship team. I think they're a good team, but are they going to be the most winning team in CDL Stage 2? Probably not. Yeah. You know, and even if in the hypothetical that everyone's playing, every single player is playing their best Call of Duty, I still feel like Optic, Dallas, and FaZe are steps above NYSL. Right. Getting there.
I do agree with you. I do think NYSL could be nasty.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen.
They're just young. They're young. Good. They're really good.
And
they've
also got a great teacher. Yeah. Just saying, in terms of because I'm not saying that they need teaching about the game. No, they do. But in terms of just how they carry themselves in competitiveness, I think Clay is fantastic.
They do. That. It's the same way of Shotzi and Hugh, for example. They were incredible talents. I'm going to go back to their Halo days. Yeah. They're incredible talents. Your game goes up a notch when you get to team with people who are equally as great as you. You know, for Shotzi, it was teaming with Eco and Stellar. Yeah. His game went from here to just slightly here to here. Hugh elevates it when he got on a team with Snipe Down and McWin and Ola. Boom. He was a top player already, but boom.
Anyone gets on team with you, same thing. Yeah. Say, look at it. Caught him out being too humble.
Whatever.
Quite a little interesting stat before we move on. Mm-hmm. Interesting that our 2 underdogs for Group B, Paris and Mutineers, both play the same team. They both play Minnesota Rocker to start with. Yeah. So that's really cool.
It's a good measure.
It's a good measure. Very good measure of how these 2 teams might do coming up against each other. Underdog versus underdog. That'd be cool.
We haven't seen any matches yet.
Yeah.
Who do you think FaZe can lose the second major after watching them? New meta, new maps. Are you thinking it's all up for grabs? I'm throwing this on the spot on you. We didn't have this planned.
I think it is up for grabs.
I'd say the same.
I think it is, but I also don't think FaZe are going to slip up bad. I don't think they're going to be falling anytime soon.
I saw Sim tweet he loves this meta, and I'm like, uh-oh, that's terrifying.
That is terrifying. Oh god.
Nah,
back to the drawing board, lads.
I always make my predictions for the major based on percentages after the league matches. FaZe is such an easy pick of I think FaZe is going to win this. They went undefeated. Undefeated, beat Optic. I think that they basically got better as the stage 1 went on.
I didn't expect the
stomp.
I didn't expect that, the way that they did it against Dallas, because Dallas have been really strong. Really strong.
Not this year though.
They have been this year. They have been strong. it's been okay. It's weird because it's weird seeing Dallas go toe to toe with some teams and go to the game 5. So they did win it. They did win their game 5s.
You know what? To your point, I did see Krim tweet something about I don't know if with Krim, he's a bit of a troll on Twitter. I love Krim. He's a bit of a troll on Twitter, so I don't know if it's like 100% serious. I forget who he tweeted. I think it was to Clay.
You never know.
It was something to Clay of like he doesn't know how Clay stays so pumped up through league matches because Clay is like that all the time.
Yeah.
So what you're saying about Dallas, maybe they're just like kind of playing to their opponent, their opponent's skill level. You know what I mean? Because they go game 5 with London. And it's like, why are you going game 5 with London? And it's like, well, maybe they're just struggling a little bit with like being pumped up for their match because they just feel like we're just better.
Yeah.
You know?
There's that. There could be all sorts of things that affect it. And again, like I said, it's just consistency.
Yeah.
Maybe London's just having the best game of their life. Dallas haven't expected that.
Yeah.
So again, maybe that they're being too chill about their game, and unfortunately by that
get
time,
caught off guard.
Yeah, you get caught off guard, and you have to change things up. They could be trying something new. They could be trying to grow and get ahead of the game, and they're trying something new, and it hasn't quite worked. I don't know. Could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be personal. You just don't know.
I just thought for the first major,
they win it. They won
absolutely.
the struggles.
Absolutely. For the first major, this is just from what I've seen. I thought Optic was going to be the only team to be able to hang with FaZe because strictly firepower and how each team were playing, I thought they matched up so good against each other.
Yeah.
When I saw Dallas was like struggling a little bit in their matches and stuff like that, when they ended up beating Optic, it's just like one of those matchup things. Like I just didn't think I think that Dallas will get there to where they beat FaZe in a series.
Yeah.
100%. I think they're too good not to. But for the first major, I think they just have some stuff to work out.
Yeah, they do. They do have some stuff
like
to work out.
Illy. Perfect example, Illy and MW, incredible.
Yeah.
Literally ridiculous. Literally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Illy in this game.
Huke
in this game. Destroying everyone. But like, so I feel like some of the younger guys, Shotzi and Illy, perfect examples. I just don't think they've it just hasn't 100% clicked of here's this ridiculous performance of okay, now I'm here. You know?
Yeah.
But no, I think they're going to get there.
Yeah.
100%.
I think they will get there. I also think it's a really great platform to start on. I mean, the fact that they're there.
Top two,
they get second in their major. Yes, they get stomped, but I mean, they also still got there. But if anything, I think that's taught them a lesson or two.
Yeah.
In terms of what they need to do. I think that's part of the process of league play. Learning what you need to work on before you get to the big part. And they haven't really played FaZe at all.
To what you're saying too, you know what the really good thing for Dallas is? They've already been through it.
Yeah.
They've already gone through we didn't win early on. It took them a couple months. It took them 3 months to win their first LAN over in LA. And then, they progress and progress and they win champs. Yeah. So for them, I think the cool thing, they're not panicking.
No, we're seeing a few similarities, aren't we, between seasons? Quite interesting. But I'm excited to figure out what's going to happen.
Pick up the game too quick.
And this season, I know this is true. They are tiny and they're terrifying. It's true. So I think I've got a little run of show here, as PJ called it today. Love that, because that's something that we use in broadcast, that term. So I'm pretty sure we have hit everything we want to talk about in terms of Call of Duty League.
Yeah.
And now it's the part where we just talk about something that we want to talk about to do with esports, to do with life. And the topic today is going to be video games and esports and growing up with it, and when you figure out it's something you want to do for the rest of your life in terms of your career. How do you go about it? Is it acceptable in our culture now?
Yeah.
Is it, what do parents think of it? Is it terrible? Because I feel like this is a subject that has been brought up so much, and I really feel like it's the only subject that gets brought up on mainstream media. So on television and news is the only thing that they cover is it bad? Is it good? All this blood and gore and other things, and staying in your room in the dark for hours and hours. And it's not quite like that.
Yeah.
That's not really a realistic view of what people do here. So, and I feel like that really is mainly the only thing that gets covered, unless there's a huge prize pool in something, for example, Fortnite.
Yeah.
And I think that's also because kids are involved in Fortnite too. So I think mainstream media likes to cover that too. So there's a lot to unpack
Yeah.
here. So first of all, I think
It's a big topic.
yeah, it is a big topic, and I think we can maybe start by talking about your experience in it, because I think this is the best way to do it, and every experience is different for everybody. So take this with a pinch of salt, but it's a bit of a story time here with Peach. So Peach, obviously pro player, and have been since you were very young. Actually, you started playing games when you were really young, but you actually started to become a pro really young.
I turned pro when I was semi-pro by 12, pro by 13.
See, that is mad to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Been doing
at 12, I was up
years.
trees. I was gaming, but I was up trees half of the time. So
you didn't have good internet where you were at. It's okay.
I did not have good internet at all. I never played multiplayer.
I know.
When I was
That's what
a kid.
I mean.
I never played multiplayer. I played campaigns, everything. I was, RPGs.
You could have been a pro player instead of a host. You never know.
PC. I could have been. Wow. But you know what? I want to know from you, like, when did you realize you were good? Like, when did you actually realize as a kid that you were good at this? Was there a moment?
Man. I think there was a moment, but it was kind of like a build up. So basically, I started playing when I was 6 years old. My cousin,
6?
I was playing Halo. I was
I
was playing Halo CE.
Yeah.
With my cousin and basically like all of his friends. They're older.
CE.
They're older than me.
Where you have to aim a little bit to the right to get it straight.
Yeah.
Good old CE.
I love that game. It's probably it's still like one of my favorites. But yeah, so I was playing with them. And they were older than me, and to be honest, they were better than me. Like I was young, so obviously. So it really started with me going, and we LAN every weekend, if not all week. Yeah, like we would just like from 6 a.m. from 6 years old.
Yeah.
On, it was like my cousin's name is David. You heard me reference. I was like, okay, I'm going to David's house. Like and it'd be 8 to 16 people at his house. I don't how it was insane because it was a thing. Halo was like the game at the time. It started with me just getting destroyed basically.
Right.
And
but
then
at 6 years old, could they tell that something was there? Like, at 6, you're managing to even play.
It's funny because like I was so young and still keeping up with people, but I still to this day, like I'm not joking, the people I was playing with, they could have been professional Halo players, and I've told them that like straight up because progressively I got better and better, but that would have happened with them as well. But life takes you in different directions,
right?
So I actually feel like I lucked out majorly where from such an early age I was just going against really good players, and it was just like training me,
So that was like more for fun, obviously, like playing with your cousin and that kind of thing, and keeping LAN, which is wicked. Like back in the day, LAN, it was just. That's just cool.
Everyone
to
would
me.
bring their TVs.
Yeah, that's cool to me. I wish you had a picture of that.
Yeah,
I'd love to see a picture. We'll try and dig some out and put them on the Instagram and the social media and stuff. But it's interesting. How did you then progress from kind of doing that for fun to then creating your online like friends and community where you then were like, okay, I can compete for money? When did that click in, and what age?
So I got really lucky. Where you obviously know my friend Michael. How would you explain him? He's been one of my best friends. He's like my next door neighbor. Or when I was a kid, he was kind of my next door neighbor. His grandma is my next door neighbor, and then he'd come down for summers, so that's how I know him. And somehow I really don't remember. Like I don't remember I remember playing nonstop, but I don't remember being like, I want to be a pro player.
Yeah.
But there was an event in 2006.
And this is your first event?
This is my first event. He convinced me and kind of convinced my parents. Like, I think they were all totally cool with it. But, like, I remember, like, I wasn't really, like, I want to go so bad. Like, it was more of him being like, hey, there's this event. Like, let's go to it. Yeah. And so it was FFA. I didn't know enough people to play fours. I only played by myself, with him or by myself.
How old were you?
11. So my first event I was 11 years old. I played in the FFA. I made it to like 6th or 7th round. I was like,
how old were everyone else, would you say?
16 to 23, 25 probably is like the average age.
Right.
So I made it to the 6th round in the FFA, which is probably like 2 rounds away from pro bracket.
Right.
And I just lucked out because I did so well that I think like both in my mind and in my parents' minds, it was like, okay, I'm not like this isn't like just some hobby. It's like I'm clearly doing something right. I'm good. I got to give credit to like people at the event. My dad went with me, and people were like going up to him being like, is that your son? Like, is that your son? And he'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, he's so good. Oh my God. And like, I think like something like that probably back then went a long way, you know, because I remember my friend's
mom. It's all word of mouth, wasn't it? Back then?
Because you didn't have an online persona back then. You just were literally known by your gamer tag and when you showed up to the event, basically. But I remember like my friend's mom, Michael's mom, we stayed at his house, and it was the day before the tournament, and she was like, you know, she thought it was like the silliest thing. She was like, I can't believe you guys think you're going to go and beat these guys that are playing for, that have been playing for money and make a living off of it and yada, yada, yada. And then we go the first day on Friday, and I make it far enough to where I got to go back Saturday. Michael, no offense to him, Mike, if you're watching, like he knew he wasn't going to do good. I think he got like first, maybe second round. Okay. But we go back to their house on Friday, and, you know, she was like, oh, how'd it go? And she was like amazed when we were like, Mike was like, oh, PJ's got to go back tomorrow. Like, he's still playing. And she was like, what? You know, like,
yeah, that's kind of cool that she understood that, like how that works, and the fact that these people, you know, play for money, and that's something
it was on TV at the time.
Was it?
Yeah, it was on a USA network. I think it was at least, unless it was like a little bit after. But it was becoming mainstream before mainstream. Yeah, you know.
And at the time, who were like the big pros to watch out for?
Ogre 2, Walshy, like Final Boss, Carbon were the top two. No one touched them, basically.
Did you, when you were at that event, had you kind of got into that world of like knowing who these people were and like looking up to them, or was that to come?
That was to come.
Okay.
I heard of names. It was hard to watch. Like there was really nothing to. Yeah. There was a broadcast on like the MLG website. There wasn't Twitch. There wasn't YouTube. That, you know. Yeah. So yeah, you had to know when the event was, and that's how you caught it. And, you know, you could go back. They'd try to put up VODs of like people's gameplays, but like it's not really like, you know, it's just different dynamic than watching like a live event, you know. Yeah. So I knew who they were for sure, but it was more like the first event was just straight, hardly knew anything. Yeah. Heard of MLG, and like, you know, it's kind of like the saying, like, oh, you know, you want to be an MLG pro, but like I didn't know what that was.
What happened on Saturday when you went back?
I won a couple rounds, and then I got knocked out. I ended up in a lobby with like pretty much, I'd have to see it to like remember all the names, but I remember like a lot of pro players being in it, like Defy, Fear Itself, Hysteria, like guys who became like household names for Halo for quite a while, because that's how far I made it. Like, you know, obviously playing against good people. Okay,
so from that journey on, what kind of happened? How was the transition to you then doing that first ever event? Did you suddenly just kind of snap into and like, I loved that? Like, I want to keep doing that?
It was one of the coolest experiences. Like, you know, I just love the game, and being able to keep making it further and further, I was like, it was such a cool feeling. Yeah, I just wanted to keep doing it. I tried to go to a event in 2007. You know, I couldn't travel. I just went to events in New Jersey and New York. Yeah. So my parents took me to the 07 Meadowlands event. I don't even tell people I went to it because it's going to sound like an excuse, but keep in mind, I'm like 12. Yeah. Right? So I have a 44 team this time. I'm pumped.
Is this your first time 44?
My first time 44. Right. So I'm pumped. I had a pretty solid team. Like, I'm like,
do you remember who you had?
No, I remember. I'll say the story.
Because you have an excellent. He has an unbelievable memory when it comes to this. Usually, this is.
I know two of the names. One guy's name was like Ben the V or something like that, right. And then the other guy's name, I'll tell you in a second. I don't like him because I don't know whether it's true or not. Basically, what ends up happening, we have this team go to the event. My teammate doesn't show up.
He doesn't show up.
He said I don't know. And look, back then, like, you have no way of knowing. He says he's Canadian.
You and Ben V were very annoyed.
And someone else, I don't know. I forget who our other teammate was. But yeah, so we had to pick up someone
random at the event.
Oh
my gosh.
And
like an FFA player? Or
yeah, like people would be there and they wouldn't have teams, and you just kind of grab someone. The guy, his name was Ghost. He was really good. Funny enough.
I was like, the Ghost?
No. It was just some random guy named Ghost. He was actually really good. He said he lived in Canada, and so they like wouldn't let him into the US. Oh. I don't know if that's, you know, who knows.
But he was at the event though?
No, he didn't go. He just didn't show up. His name was Ghost. He didn't show up.
The guy didn't show up. Okay.
I think we made it to like the fourth round of the 44.
He couldn't contact you or anything? If you didn't have phones?
He contacted someone because we knew by like Saturday. So he talked to someone on the team. I don't even know if I had a cell phone at that point. I really have no idea. I don't know.
So who did you pick up?
I can't remember.
Can't remember who picked up.
But I don't
didn't do too good.
Well, we didn't do. I wouldn't say we did terrible for like not having any practice and stuff. I think we got third or fourth round.
Do you remember your team name?
No.
No.
But I didn't do good in the FFA, and I fully believe the reason I didn't do good in the FFA is because I was so mad, and I was like mad and like embarrassed because my parents were there, and it was just such a like welcome to esports, you know, like it was just such like a, I don't know the word, like discouraging.
Yeah, discouraging.
You know, like you're trying to make it, you're trying to show how good you are and everything. And luckily, like
I love how you're having all these feelings at 12 years old.
Oh, I was so mad. I could have fought him. I really could have. I was so mad.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you practice, you know.
So I'm guessing you got knocked out pretty early from 4v4. Yeah. How far did you make it? Do you remember?
Third, fourth round, something like that.
Okay, not terrible. Not like first round.
My next event was 2008.
2008.
That's
so
when
I went
like a year later because I could only go to the New Jersey
13?
events. Yeah, I was like 13.
Okay.
Or like maybe still 12, like turning 13 kind of. And I made it semi-pro. Got top 32. It was a big deal back then. Yeah. You know, it was pro, semi-pro.
What was the lead up like for that with you? Like, how did you? So within that year, what were you doing in order to prepare for something like that?
So Halo 3 came out because there was no more Halo 2. It was Halo 3. I somehow ended up on a team with people I'm still friends with. One guy's name's Thrust. You probably remember him. You've met him now. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I think we just kind of like met through matchmaking kind of thing. You know, I really don't like for the life of me.
Because that's how it happened back then.
Yeah, back then it was kind of like you're a high level,
good,
I'm a high level.
Like, hey, he's good.
You seem pretty good, or you'd like be scrimming with your teammates, and maybe you play against their team, and you're like, oh, he's pretty good. Yeah, and you just kind of like start to mix in. Got semi-pro, cool. And then a year later got pro.
That's really good.
Yeah,
and same team. From semi-pro to pro or different?
No,
so how does that work? Because I've got a few following questions based on this story. This is why we're talking about the story first, so then we can nitpick on how this works and like why it's so good and etc. All bad. So how did you back then? So from 13 to 14 to probably 15 around then. How did you get on different teams? Like I know you said matchmaking stuff, but like. You got to pick up 3. Yeah. So how does that work?
I think you just like, once you get like semi-pro, you just kind of start to know people that place around the same as you. And you just kind of start to like mix in, you know, like I remember, it's funny enough. I was literally just talking to APG about this. I've known APG since 2008.
Wow.
So when I turned semi-pro, a little quick story. When I turned semi-pro, APG was a really hyped up player. Same age as me, but people knew him as a really good FFA player back in H2. No one knew who I was. Yeah. APG messaged me. It was after the first event of 2008. I get top 32. He didn't make semi-pro, so he was like pretty mad at himself. He messaged me and said, I knew who he was because I've heard of him. I didn't know how old he was, but he messaged me. He's like, do you think you're good now? Or something like that. This is the first time I've ever talked to him. He messaged me like, do you think you're good now?
Oh my gosh.
And you know why we became friends? Because I replied back. I said, no. I said no, like period. Top 32 isn't good. Yeah. And then he was like, I like this kid. You know, he's like me. I like him. And we tried the team for the next event. And he ended up bailing on the event
bailed?
It was
not another ghost.
It was like a bail, but it was an
last minute bail.
Yeah, it was a last minute bail.
Brad.
But you know, the event was in California. He's 13, like me, and you know,
so young.
he was pretty aware, kind of like I was. Like, no offense to the guys we were teaming with, I won't say names, but he messaged me when he told us, and he was like, "Hey, I really like teaming with you. I think you're really good." He goes, "But I just don't think we're gonna do good enough to justify going," kind of thing.
But so this was before you went, right?
Yeah, this is like,
you're not there, and you're like, great.
No, so we had like a week practice with someone else.
Okay.
But I remember replying back, being like, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand,
so you
bro.
Understood. Yeah.
Because it's a long trip. California back then, especially, it's a 6-hour flight.
Definitely.
I mean,
so you were traveling as well to go.
We got top 32. My parents were like, okay, you know, if you want to do this, like we're gonna try. And you know, they tried their hardest with it. I went to 2 more events and then decided to take a break for a little bit.
Okay, so before we get into the rest of it, do you remember the moment that you made pro?
Yeah, I do.
What happened?
So I was teaming with Dursky, obviously you know really well.
Sean,
my boy. We teamed a couple times in the next couple years after that.
Yeah.
It was myself, Ferris, you know Scott. He's messaged me a couple times. You know Scott, and Loki. His name's Curtis. I don't think you've ever.
Nice name though. I like the name Loki. It's cool.
Yeah, I remember it. We played against a team. They're called North of 49. They're pretty like known players.
Right.
But we actually got to LAN against them. Okay. Right before the tournament, and we slapped them.
Where were you LANing?
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Yeah. Where?
It was a place called like Nerd Palace or something like that. His name is Slob Murph. He ran it's like a LAN center kind of thing, and he's really nice. He let us, him and his, I think we were at his parents' house. I assume
that is cool.
They'd let us stay at their house, so it'd be one team upstairs, and 2 teams downstairs.
Did you ever like become friends like when you're doing this? Like
I went there like twice with the players, or I mean,
we were oppositions.
We were cool because I mean you're there for a couple of days and hanging out and everything. But we slapped everyone.
So you
at the LAN.
You slapped them at the LAN, and then it was the real deal.
Yeah.
And where was that event where you did become pro?
Dallas 2009.
Dallas 2009.
They did take us to a game 5, which we should not have gone to game 5. I think we were a little bit nervous.
And so this was the game where you're on the cusp of being pro. So you have to win this game for your entire team to become pro 16. And get into the pro bracket. Yep. Right. Okay. And do you remember the moment you won? Is that the most emotion you've ever had?
No. I thought it was terrible.
What? Because you went to game 5?
We went to game. I was pissed.
So you weren't happy that you made it pro?
No, it was so I wish like I told you before, I wish I could be happy, but it was like we went to game 5 with a team we shouldn't have gone to game 5 with. We staked them, we destroyed them game 5, but I was like, I remember I was happy because we were heading into Sunday, but I remember being like, oh my god, like why?
So you got to pro for the first ever time and you were mad.
Yeah, because like why?
I think, do you know, it's so funny hearing that from you because I feel like that has really set a foundation of your career. Yeah. And I think that is why you do so well because you are a perfectionist. You really are. When it comes to this kind of thing, he's not a perfectionist in every other aspect of his life. For example, like he's a pretty chill guy. Like I know you very well.
I think I'm chill outside.
And you're very chill.
Gaming.
But when it comes to something like gaming, you're a perfectionist. And I think that's why you excel so much because like even though you had open this whole new world, you're now pro, this is probably what most kids dream of, but you were mad because you didn't do as good as you had expected in that one game despite getting that level of satisfaction of becoming pro.
We just shouldn't have gone to game 5 with them. Like we knew we literally like we probably dropped like 3 maps in a whole LAN. Like you probably play like 50 maps against them.
Consistency,
and we go to game 5 and I'm just like, oh my god, it's disgusting.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So I guess
top
like
12 though. We won another
really
round
good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. Do you think that you obviously having that mindset of being a perfectionist in this one field? Yeah. Do you think that is what has carried your career so far? Do you think that mentality has really helped aid you in your success?
I think it's probably what has kept me so consistent because I feel like I'm kind of living in constant fear almost of like not being good anymore or our team like slacking off and not doing good. I've got like, we talked about this, I think in the first ever episode, I've gotten better over time of dialing it in a little bit more and knowing when to like chill out. I think it's what's led me to where I'm at now for sure. But I wouldn't recommend it to people. It's like you just need that balance in your life, and I just for a long time didn't have that. Like when I've told you this a bunch of times. When we won $1 million, I was annoyed because we tied the first game. Yeah, and it's like when I look back on it, it's like why would you? It's like
look back on it and you're like,
I regret. I look back on it and I regret like not enjoying the moment more. Yeah. But my mind, I was like, man. Like we were so much better than that team at Worlds, and it's like why did we tie that first game? Like that just sucks. And then I told you this before. They immediately after we won Worlds announced Pro League. Yeah. And my mind immediately went
straight
to Pro League. Just straight to like okay.
It
now
is
we
that perfectionist mentality that you have. That it's like, but I think it does aid in your success. Yeah. But I think a lot of people can like confuse that with not being happy. But you are. It's just that you want perfection. Yeah. So it is what it is.
I think it's a good thing. Yeah. Overall.
I think it is. I think it's a good thing.
And I think
you don't carry that into the rest of your life.
No, I was going to say, but I think I've gotten better at not letting it carry into the rest of my life. Now it's kind of like, it's in my mind constantly when it comes to gaming, but then I just love my life outside of gaming now, where before it was kind of all that was on my mind.
So with your story of how you got started, obviously at such a young age, I think that comes into play with parents and how they kind of view esports and stuff, because
Massively.
I feel like you are very lucky that your parents are extremely understanding and
shout out mom and dad,
caring when it comes to doing something that you love.
Yeah.
And I also think back then there was a lack of understanding.
Oh, 100%.
This is brand new to a lot of people, and your parents like being so willing to learn about it, and then they fall in love with it as well. It's pretty spectacular, and I think you're very lucky in that sense. So, how far do you truly think you would have got without your parents' support like that?
I just don't think it would have happened. My parents, I kind of said it jokingly, but shout out mom and dad. I was 12 and 13, and I was flying to California and Florida and Texas, and
they aided that journey with you.
Yeah, I would put any kind of money I ever got, I'd give to them. Yeah. And let's do this. But looking back on it, I mean, how much birthday money was I really getting? Was it really enough to pay for a flight and hotel? No, it wasn't. Yeah. And eventually I got pro to where I'd get like a $300, $400 stipend, and it's like that helped a little bit, but still, probably still didn't even cover it. So I think it just played a massive factor into it. I don't think I just don't think it would have happened without them. And I think one of the things that they did so great, it drives me crazy now a little bit, but one day, whenever we have kids or anything, it's something that one thing I learned from them that I will use for future kids that we have is embrace their hobbies and make it your hobby. Yeah. And it drives me crazy with my parents because, we can lose an event now. My dad will message me, be like, what happened? And it's like, oh my God, but they really embraced what I loved and made it something that they're like, we're going to be about this too.
And I think it's important to talk about how, there are pros and cons to this lifestyle, like gaming, esports, as there are with everything. And I think there's a lot of kind of issue around gaming and about what it does for someone's lifestyle, social life, education, everything, and I think there's a lot of negative light that is shed on it sometimes, especially in the mainstream media, and I think that a lot of it is wrong. I think a lot of it doesn't happen. In life you need a balance with everything. That could be with football, that could be with soccer, that could be with a sport.
Did you say football as in American football? And then say soccer?
Yeah, I did good there.
Your parents are gonna be
they're
mad.
Gonna be furious. They'll be like, what is this? But you need a balance in life, and I think it's really, really important. So if you don't have a balance, things aren't going to turn out the way you want them regardless. So, and that is with work as well. You're not always just working. So I think with esports and gaming, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to do that as a hobby in your own time, especially as a kid. I know so many stories of people who have social anxieties that gaming has really helped them. They've created online friends and been able to talk to people a lot more within reason. For example, if you do have a young kid who is talking to people online, go in and see what they're doing. See who they're talking to. I remember my dad would come up to my brother's setup and he would hear my brother talking to his friends on RuneScape or wherever it was at the time, and he'd pop the headset and go, hey Danny, hey whoever this was, how are you today? And he would figure out who they are, what they're doing, if they're kids or not. It's part of the process. You do need to have some kind of system in place where you can kind of, depending on obviously how old your kids are, or adults, etc., depending on who's living with you, there is a level of precautiousness that you do need to take with it. 100%. And with anything though, that could be anything. You go out into this world with some kind of risk, and it's, as your parents, it is a job that they take on to protect you, and I understand that. But I don't think that seeing gaming in this hugely negative light is any way to live by, especially considering nowadays,
Yeah.
it is a genuine career path, but in so many different ways. I mean, you see like esports, you see universities taking on esports and nurturing people who want to get into that. There's the broadcasting side of it.
Yeah.
There's coaching, management. There's orgs, owning an org. There's being part of an org, being a content creator. There's so much to dive into.
Yeah, there's never been a better time to grow up as a kid who loves gaming, because it's so solidified now. And to what you're saying about media, it's just easy to focus on. It's easy to focus on the negative. For the most part, what media focuses on with like the negative sides to video games, it's really not about, it doesn't tend to be about the professional esports player.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't know, it's like, you know, for example, what you're saying, like the no social skills. And it's like, you know, there is a difference between communicating online to communicating obviously in person. But for the most part, like when I was growing up, I was talking to people all the time because they were my teammates, and we're communicating and solving problems. And, you know, like there's some social aspects that you get through competing. You know, I think the biggest thing is the balance. Like you said, my parents did such a great job with me with being like, you need good grades. You know, I didn't really get in trouble as a kid, so that helped too. But the school aspect was always very much like, you need to be good at this to be able to do this. And I just always viewed it that way. It's like, okay, you know, I'm not going to mess up here because I don't want this taken away. Obviously, that's a struggle. It's a struggle for parents and kids.
It is a struggle. But I think there's also, you got to take it with a pinch of salt. You have to, again, with the balance, like it's important to have a balance and to teach that balance and why it's important to have it at an early age. And I think there's so many beautiful things about gaming. You know, there's a lot of games out there that have lessons in them that really do teach you, you know, certain like skills in life just by playing them. You know, there's looking at RPG games as well. Look at Zelda. Zelda has so many different puzzle aspects to it as well that really starts to get your brain learning, and it starts you know, churning in certain ways and figuring things out. I mean, there's so many games that have that aspect to it, the puzzle kind of aspect. But I also think for a lot of kids or even adults, teenagers, whoever you are playing games and you struggle with the real world and real life, it's sometimes nice to immerse yourself into something a little bit more relaxing where it isn't real. And I think that's something else to remember, because blood and gore does come into this conversation a lot in terms of the negative part of it. It's not real, but you turn on the news and you do see blood and gore, and it is real. So it's a really hard balance, I think, with that as well.
It's just one of those things with parenting, isn't it? Like just monitoring. Yeah, and
you're not going to let your 6-year-old kid play, I think, Call of Duty where there is a ton of blood and gore and, you know, it's real guns and it's an actual a history situation.
I was allowed to.
I know.
But
at 6,
but,
though?
Yeah.
You were allowed to play Call of Duty at 6?
Yeah, but it's because I just think my parents did a really good job. I don't know how they did it. It's just like them, you know, I just think they like understood me, you know, and like they were like, he knows, like I'd say I just had that common sense like pretty early on.
I think that's all. I think it's all unique to each person's situation. Like for me, I probably, when I have kids, I probably won't let them play Call of Duty till they're a little bit older, like probably till, you know, they get into the double digits. I'm not saying like I'm going to hold off till they're teens, but like, you know, I would say like I'll assess that as the time comes. But I think, you know, like for Halo, for example, there is no blood and there is no gore. They drop like their dolls, so it's different.
There is, back then there was, like Halo 5 doesn't, but back then there was. But it's like, you know, you're like shooting aliens.
But I mean, I'm talking like in this time, in this era, you know, for them, like that is the latest game. Yeah. That's probably the game they'd pick up. I got you. And then in Infinite, I'm sure they're probably going to continue on that trend of not having the blood.
I wasn't allowed to play every game though. Like when I think back to it, like I don't.
GTA, were you ever allowed to play?
Like I don't think so. Like I don't remember 100%. I remember there were some games, I'd have to ask my parents, but I think like I remember my dad playing like SOCOM and stuff like that, like really like realistic.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was able to like watch him play, but I never played it. And then I guess maybe it was just one of those things, like as I started to get a little bit older and understood it, maybe I was allowed to. Like I don't remember it being like,
I remember my first kind of like not gory game, but the game that had like guns in it and stuff was Tomb Raider.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact Tomb Raider it was, but it was it was really old. It
Really?
was so old. And it was like, you know, those Microsoft PCs that are chunky,
Yeah.
and they're like that kind of cream color with the matching keyboard and mouse, and they're just huge, and they just sit on top of your desk with the actual like computer itself. I played on one of those, and I played Tomb Raider on PC with Jake, and Jake, we'd take in turns, we'd sit next to each other and watch. And it was the butler with the shaky tray. I remember that, and I remember like the gun aspect, and to me it wasn't like, I remember being quite young but not thinking it was violent. I just remember thinking it was like more like just like an aiming type system. It wasn't, to me it wasn't like I was killing people or killing a tiger, because that's the first mission.
You know what my dad did that I think really made a difference, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he was there. Like the first time I ever played like an actual like violent game, I think it was either Call of Duty or it was Medal of Honor. Do you remember Medal of Honor?
Yeah.
And he was like playing, and I remember him being like, I can't remember like off the top like 100%, but I remember him. I was probably like, can I try? And he was like, yeah, okay. And he was sat there. I played for probably like 10 minutes, and then okay, now he plays again. You know, and I think like, I just think something like that probably makes a little bit of a difference compared to like unsupervised, like let me just play. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I also just want to state that there's a lot of people I know as well. I've worked with a lot of people in this industry who have grown up with gaming stuff. There's no way that like playing Call of Duty, and the fact that my life right now is surrounded by Call of Duty or anything that has a gun meta, makes me want to go out and get a gun. Like it just doesn't. Like it just doesn't, because it just, I don't know, there's no kind of desire to do that. And I know so many people who are like that as well.
Yeah, I think the thing with video games and stuff is it just hits such a large scale amount of people where everyone is going to interpret things differently.
Yeah.
Whether that's negative or
difficult.
Positive, and then how you want to contribute, like what you want to credit negative things happening to. Yeah. You know. It
is quite interesting to see that most games, and I mean most games, have some kind of violence in them. Every genre. I mean, like, look at Mario. You still, like, jump on the heads of certain things and destroy them, don't you? There is some kind of... Look at Mario Kart. You still try and bomb people out of the track and, like, hit them off. There is... In video games, there is always some type of aggressive nature or some kind of destruction in there, or violence. But it's hard because it doesn't make me want to be violent at all. I think the only game that has zero violence at all is Animal Crossing. I swear, I don't think there's any violence in there.
I don't know. I haven't played it. I mean,
Animal Crossing, but do you know what I mean? If you think about it that way, there
is
something.
Pokemon is somewhat. I mean,
you're fighting each other with. You're catching poor innocent creatures and making them duel.
You got a point. Yeah, I never looked at it that way. You got a point.
That's like cockfighting. You know, when you go and bet on a cockfight, which is two chickens, two roosters in a ring, and you make them fight and you bet on it. It's like it's like the virtual version of that. But you know, it's become like a love of the world. You know, people globally love video games, but I just don't think it is for that violent nature. I don't think that's why they love them.
Yeah, I think we're progressing pretty well though.
Yeah,
like in the world, I think that, I mean, I think I could speak pretty highly on it because of going back to when I've been a professional player. It's becoming more and more acceptable. Parents are really embracing it for their kids more and more. I see it across every game now. So many young kids that their parents are all about it. They're their biggest fans, and I love that.
Yeah. What about this angle? This is quite an interesting angle. What about the people out there who do have naturally a violent nature to them? There's people in the world that do. People have anger management all the time that do, and it's a natural thing. And everyone gets in arguments. People do have an aggressive side, right? That's just life. What about video games suppressing that for people, helping people to get through that? Like if they're having a stressful day and they want to go and play some video games to relieve some stress and some energy and aggression, like do you feel like that could actually aid them in that rather than going out to the streets and doing it instead?
I think it can. But
so I think it's an interesting, weird topic.
It's a tough topic because it's just so dependent on the person, and I'm sure everyone would agree with that. Like some people, let's say kids, right? Kids growing up, some kids will be better off for that, you know, and playing video games is like an outlet, and then other kids actually probably need to be taken slightly away from that because it almost enables it. Yeah. So that's really... It's tough, you know. You don't necessarily know 100%, and that's kind of on the parent and people to figure out, you know, where you kind of lie with that.
Yeah, it's very strange because when I look at Call of Duty with what I do, and from like a broadcast perspective, when I talk about it, that violence is gone for me. Like I don't see it like that at all. Like it's really strange because when I'm talking about it, it's gone. Like that. Like I don't see violence at all. I just see skill.
Yeah.
I see like the thought process, the smart. I see the rotations being smart. I see trying to spawn kill and spawn trap, but I don't see any type of aggression in it. I don't, and I feel like the more we continue to accept video games for what they are, and the fact that people worldwide enjoy them, I think the more that aggression and that violent nature that people associate gaming with will disappear. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the violence.
And the thing to remember too, I 100% agree with you, but the thing to remember too, games have a rating. They have a rating for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and it's up to people to decide whether, you know, let's say you're talking about a rated M game.
Yeah.
Right? It's the equivalent of deciding whether or not your kid or, you know, your child in this sense is old enough to watch an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
You know, or like, you know, so
that was actually my next topic.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I think that the labels are there for a reason, and then it's up to people to decide what's appropriate and what isn't.
This is what's really funny about it, right? Is there's all this like spiel about video games and how aggressive their nature is, and that they could potentially turn kids into you know, shooters and serial killers and all sorts of weird things like that. But what about the movie industry?
Yep.
Look at, I mean, one of my favorite movies ever is John Wick.
Yeah.
Right? Look at John Wick. You start falling in love with
John Wick.
You fall in love with the character John Wick. He's a damn assassin.
Yeah.
For God's sake. He goes out and kills people and doesn't even know why he kills them. I mean, there's all sorts of things like that and you start, you know, one of the assassins kills his dog, you suddenly feel terribly sorry for John Wick, who's killed countless amount of people and probably dogs. I mean,
don't ruin John Wick for me.
I know.
All right?
But what I'm saying is there is guns, violence and sex, drugs everywhere in the movie industry, right? Everywhere, because unfortunately it appeals to humans, it appeals to people of the world. I don't know why. Action and craziness and things that you probably wouldn't see in your lifetime appeals to people, and like it is everywhere. Every single film has guns in it, I swear. Most films, apart from you looking at animation.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is what it is, and that is the world we live in. So you're going to stop your kid watching John Wick? You're going to stop your kid watching G.I. Joe? Yeah. Are you going to stop your kid watching all sorts of little things that have this kind of aspect? I mean, look at Ken dolls, for goodness sake. Action figures. They all have guns and ammo belts and stuff like that. It is the world we live in, and I think the sooner we accept it, and I feel like video games is a great channel for people to have fun and enjoy it in a positive light, and not do it IRL. Yeah. That's how I see it.
I mean, I see it mostly the same. It's just such a hard topic overall.
Is, but movies are way more realistic.
No, I've always thought the same thing of there's a lot of like finger pointing over at video games, I feel like. And I get why in some cases, but then on the other case it's also like, well, there's a lot of other factors that go into it other than just like, you know, your kid played X game and now he's violent or like whatever, you know, he or she. And it's the hard part to figure out because it comes down to parenting, comes down to doctors, comes down to figuring out what's appropriate for your kid.
Yeah. It's each person individually and you can't decide that. And I think as a parent, I think if you see something amazing happening and evolving in your kid's life and he's really talented or she's really good at this, you should nurture it within your own right. If that's something you think that they're capable of doing, they'd be really good and they have found a balance and you're teaching that balance to them, I think it's okay. I think you can do that. I think they can still get a great education. It's like having a hobby but in sports. It's doing something that they enjoy and that they love and they're good at. So I think supporting is obviously the best case. I'm an advocate for that with kids.
Well, I said it when we first started talking about it. My parents fully embracing it and supporting it.
I know,
and
they're amazing.
Being like, okay, he loves this, now we love it.
Yeah.
Within reason, especially when you're a kid. But if you can make your, at least how I could talk about how I felt, I feel like my parents really supported me and loved me and wanted me to succeed. So like when they would say something to me about like being on top of my schoolwork, I never saw it as like them prioritizing one over the other. It was like they had my equal interests.
Yeah. definitely. I remember we're gonna bring this to a close, but just finally, I remember them telling me that they found it very soothing, like at night when he would practice with his team when he was really starting to like come up in his career.
This is like Halo 5.
Yeah, he would practice with his team like pretty late at night. They'd be in bed already, and they'd find it soothing hearing the call outs and like the super like craziness of calling out on a team when you're scrimming and stuff like that. And they genuinely find it soothing to go to bed, because from 6 they were used to him doing that.
So that started when I moved away. Like, because I obviously for a period of time I moved to the Optic Scuff House, and then I moved to Texas in my own apartment with Optic. And you know, they went from, you know, my sisters kind of like moved in, moved out kind of thing, and then eventually just moved out with their husbands, obviously. And they went from having me from 7 p.m. to, let's say, 1 a.m. basically like screaming call outs to just silent household. So when I moved away, so when I moved away, they started stream on, right? There's Twitch obviously, and they'd start watching and like just, you know. Talk
about supportive parents. That's the ultimate. But tell you what, guys, we want to hear from you as well, what you think about this topic. It's a deep topic,
especially the video game topic. It's interesting to see, because I have friends that couldn't play, you know, and I don't view it differently. You know, I get it. So it's interesting to see like where people kind of,
do you guys feel that way? And you know, I feel like a lot of our viewers are around our same age as well, and if you're older or younger, that's awesome. We want to hear from you guys. What do you think about it? Would you nurture your kids, you know, playing video games? Do you know people who, you know, are really against it? Is it something that you think is a benefit to society, having people play?
It'd be interesting if we have any parents too that like watch. They can maybe give their feedback on like how, if they don't mind sharing, obviously, on like their perspective and maybe the approach that they've taken.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. I love reading the comments.
I know, me too. I always read all the comments. But yeah, we want to hear from you guys. We love seeing what you have to say and your opinions, because we feel like we're talking with you too. So I tell you what, it's going to wrap up the end of the video, but we need to rate this wonderful coffee. Anodyne from Anodyne from Odin.
Anodyne.
Huh? I don't know. Is that Anodyne? I'm not sure. Let's give it a rating though. So, what we're going to say?
You go first.
Me first. Okay. Very strong.
Yeah.
It lingers as well as an aftertaste for sure. It lingers. It is very strong for me. I would probably give this one. I would give this one a 7.5. Because I would say like I do like a strong coffee. I would say it's a little too strong for me, but still tastes really good. Like I can still taste some really good notes in there. It's very bold, and it does linger a lot. I would say it lingers a lot. I think that is it's a very good strong coffee. If you want to wake up, like woke, you know what I mean? That's the one for you. But yeah, I'm gonna give it 7.5.
I'm going 8.3.
Oh, a point. Hold on, we're doing 0.3s now.
Yeah.
Okay, 8.3.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the highest you've given so far.
I think it is, and that's the reason why. Because I like it, so I'm gonna be like, it needs to be the highest, but I'm trying to save. those 8.5s, 9s, and 10s.
Be true to yourself, though.
Exactly.
Hun.
No, but
I think it's
an 8.3.
8.3
for me.
Okay.
Because it's really good. Like I like it.
Yeah, and you do like that.
I like it that it's one of the first like stronger coffees
that you like,
and that I've been like, oh, because I like a dark roast, but I don't like it when it's too strong necessarily. Yeah. And it's funny. I feel like we're kind of the opposite. You like it normally a really strong coffee, and I like it strong but not as strong. Yeah. But then it's funny with this, it's almost like reverse. It's too strong for you, but then for some reason, I feel like this would like wake me up. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
You know, people have been suggesting different ways of brewing our coffee. So
we need to step up our game.
I think we're gonna try and get some of the things that you guys have recommended and brew on here. So that'd be really cool. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, it's been a great episode again. Super excited to get this up, and we're going to be back next Wednesday as per usual for episode 6. My gosh, that is crazy.
Time's flying.
But we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Leave a comment, leave a review, leave a like if you fancy, and subscribe if you fancy to see our channel and what we're up to on a regular basis. And as always, stay on the grind.